It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
They once hailed him as a titan of the music industry, the mastermind behind countless careers, the ultimate architect of hip-hop royalty. But yesterday, that towering legacy came crashing down as Cassie Ventura took the witness stand. The courtroom froze as Diddy's expression drained of color, his carefully built reputation unraveling in real time. With chilling calm, his former partner laid bare allegations so shocking that even veteran courtroom journalists sat in stunned silence. The man who had commanded an entire empire was powerless in that moment, forced to listen as Cassie exposed every dark detail of what she claimed took place behind closed doors.
She walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. He said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For years, Sean Diddy Combs moved through the music world as though he owned every inch of it, and in many ways he did. From the ground up, he built Bad Boy Records, transformed unknown talents into global icons, and expanded his empire into fashion, liquor, and media. On paper, Diddy embodied the perfect blueprint of hip-hop success, the mogul who mastered the art of turning music into money. But according to what's now emerging in court, that polished image was masking something far darker. While glossy magazines celebrated his business acumen, while crowds screamed at his concerts, while cameras captured his dazzling red carpet confidence, Cassie Ventura was allegedly enduring an entirely different reality behind closed doors. The contrast left everyone in court stunned. Here was a man who projected the ultimate professionalism, custom-tailored suits, flawless grooming, rehearsed charm in every interview. Yet the accusations told of someone the public wouldn't even recognize, someone disturbingly different away from the spotlight. On day 2, Diddy strode into the courthouse the way he's walked into boardrooms, flanked by an army of top-dollar attorneys, flashing the familiar grin, nodding coolly to onlookers. To the casual observer, he appeared unshaken, as though this were just another high-stakes meeting. That illusion crumbled fast. Multiple witnesses described the stunning transformation. Within 30 minutes of Cassie's testimony, the swagger was gone. The man who once controlled billion-dollar contracts now sat visibly rattled. His trademark composure gave way to restless fidgeting as Cassie began recounting specific moments from their relationship. Diddy's legal team sprang into action, objecting repeatedly, at times seeming almost frantic to cut her off. But the courtroom was witnessing something they never expected. The man who built careers and dictated deals couldn't even command his own composure. Observers said Diddy couldn't sit still. His skin paled, as if the very air had been sucked from the room. He tugged at his tie, adjusted his cufflinks, and finally just clenched and unclenched his hands. Reporters caught him scribbling notes at a furious pace and shoving them toward his lawyers, until one even motioned for him to slow down. One courtroom reporter compared it to watching someone realize, for the first time, that they were no longer in control of the narrative. Another described Diddy as looking physically sick, while Cassie calmly recounted their history. A third observer noted Diddy shutting his eyes multiple times, as if trying to block out her words. And this was only the start. As Cassie's testimony stretched through the afternoon, the world inside that courtroom was about to understand why Diddy's confident facade had shattered. What Cassie alleged next would detonate like a bomb across the entire music industry and threaten to reduce Diddy's carefully built empire to rubble. The man who had always orchestrated the narrative was now trapped in a story he couldn't edit, spin, or control.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and said, and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
Cassie Ventura stepped up to the witness stand. You could have heard a pin drop in that tense courtroom. Everyone knew this was the moment, but no one, not even Diddy's formidable legal team, was braced for what was about to unfold. After years of silence and suppressed pain, Cassie finally had her opportunity to speak. And she did, with devastating precision. She began quietly, almost disarmingly, which only amplified the impact of what followed. Cassie recounted first meeting Diddy at just 19 years old. He was already a powerhouse in the music world, a multi-millionaire with global influence, while she was a young model hoping to break into the industry. From the very beginning, Cassie said, the imbalance of power was undeniable. And according to her, Diddy used that power deliberately. Her testimony unfolded slowly, like a psychological thriller where the dread builds with every detail. First came the alleged controlling behaviors, how he supposedly demanded constant updates on her whereabouts, how he would unexpectedly show up if she was out socializing. Then she described the professional manipulation, claims that he threatened to shelve her music projects if she didn't comply with his wishes, accusations that he sabotaged potential collaborations out of jealousy or control. The revelations only got darker. According to court transcripts, Cassie testified that Diddy had allegedly installed tracking software on her phone. She claimed, He would call her within minutes of arriving at any location, fully aware of where she was. Over time, she said, he methodically isolated her from friends and mentors who might have encouraged her to leave, leaving her completely dependent on him. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. The judge had to call for order 3 separate times as Diddy's frustration boiled over. He reportedly shook his head, whispered angrily to his attorneys, and made visible facial expressions, all of which the jury observed closely. Every time the judge reprimanded him, Diddy would gather himself for a few minutes only to lose control again. It was, as one observer put it, like watching a man used to absolute control slowly realize he had none in that room. Then came the game-changing moment. Cassie pulled out her phone and passed it to her attorney. On a large screen, messages and emails were displayed for all to see. Diddy's face reportedly froze in disbelief. It appeared he had no idea she had kept these damning records. The messages allegedly showed him apologizing for violent behavior, issuing veiled threats to sabotage her career if she spoke out, and contradicting many of the statements his publicists had released over the years. But that, according to Cassie, was just the beginning. She then recounted a series of alleged physical attacks. The courtroom fell silent as she described being slammed against walls during arguments. One horrifying account involved her allegedly being pushed down a staircase at a Miami rental property. The most chilling accusation came when Cassie described multiple incidents where Diddy allegedly strangled her to the point where she almost lost consciousness, only stopping when her body went limp. The jury's reaction was unmistakable. One older female juror was seen wiping away tears. A male juror reportedly averted his gaze, unable to look at Diddy as the disturbing details were laid bare. Even the most hardened reporters present admitted they had not anticipated the brutal specificity of Cassie's testimony. And all of it was merely the lead-up to what would become the defining moment of the trial, the hotel incident that would send this entire case into overdrive.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What does the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
I thought I wasn't going to make it out alive that night, Cassie said, her voice so faint that the packed courtroom strained to hear. She was recounting an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, a dark chapter that had remained hidden from tabloids, blogs, and even industry insiders until now. Cassie explained that she had kept the horrifying memory locked away for years, paralyzed by fear. Fear of losing her career, fear for her personal safety, and fear that no one would dare believe her over someone as untouchable as Diddy. But on that day, seated firmly in the witness chair, she was done protecting secrets. According to her account, what began as an ordinary industry after-party spiraled into terror. Cassie testified that Diddy became livid after seeing her talking to another executive. She described how his warm public demeanor vanished in an instant, how he gripped her arm so tightly it left deep bruises, and how he hissed threats in her ear while keeping up appearances for the partygoers around them. The courtroom gasped as Cassie described the next moments. She claimed Diddy forcibly dragged her across the hotel lobby toward the elevators. Tearfully, she tried to break free, causing enough of a scene that hotel security stepped in, only to back away once they recognized who Diddy was. He didn't even ask if I was okay, Cassie told the stunned court. Then came the most damning evidence yet. Her lawyer introduced a series of grainy, haunting images Cassie had taken herself the morning after. Bruises darkening her arms, a split and swollen lip, angry red marks around her neck. These weren't staged or studio-lit photos. They were shaky, taken in a hotel bathroom mirror, and that rawness only amplified the horror. Cassie explained she had taken the photos out of sheer desperation, knowing that without proof, she might never be believed. Diddy's legal team immediately scrambled to suppress the images. They objected to their admissibility, questioned their origin, and argued they should have been presented earlier. One by one, the judge shot down every attempt. As the images lit up the courtroom screens, the reaction from the jury was unforgettable. One female juror visibly gasped and covered her mouth. Two male jurors stared away, unwilling to look. A juror, seated in the back row, was seen scribbling notes at a frantic pace, her hands trembling. This was the landmine no one had anticipated. The incident had never been referenced in prior filings or interviews. Diddy's legal team had no prepared strategy, and their panic was evident to everyone watching. Cassie's testimony only grew more graphic. She accused Diddy of hurling a champagne bottle at her, narrowly missing her head as it smashed into the wall. She claimed he went on a violent rampage, shattering a lamp, overturning furniture, and punching a hole straight through the bathroom door. The most terrifying allegation came last. Cassie said Diddy held her captive inside that hotel room for over 48 hours, confiscating her phone and threatening her with consequences if she tried to escape or call for help. As Cassie finished reliving that harrowing ordeal, every eye in the courtroom turned toward Diddy. His expression at that moment, witnesses would later say, became the defining image of not just the trial, but perhaps the turning point of his entire career.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual, it may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend, who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to. I mean, that might change based on the timing, but you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now, but I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down.
It was the moment that left the entire courtroom stunned. The unthinkable happened. Diddy, the man known for his icy composure and media mastery, completely unraveled in plain sight. This was the same mogul who had spent decades crafting a flawless public persona. The smooth-talking businessman, the unflappable deal-maker, the icon who never lost control. But as Cassie's testimony hit its most explosive revelations, the mask began to slip, and then it shattered completely. Reporters who had covered countless celebrity scandals confessed they had never seen anything like it. The confident figure who strode into court that morning was now visibly shaken, shrinking deeper into his chair as each damning accusation landed. Sources near the defense table whispered that Diddy's lead attorney repeatedly placed a reassuring hand on his arm, trying to steady him. At one point, the lawyer reportedly slid him a note that simply read, "Stay calm." But the damage had already been done. The breaking point came when Cassie detailed an alleged incident at Diddy's Hampton estate. As she spoke, Diddy reported. The judge immediately halted the proceedings. "Mr. Combs, control yourself or I will have you removed," the judge sternly warned. Observers later said it appeared Diddy barely stopped himself from being ejected from his own trial. Throughout Cassie's testimony, he was seen mouthing, "That's not true," repeatedly after particularly damaging claims, seemingly forgetting that the jury was watching his every move. As the tension peaked, Cassie dropped the bombshell. She had secretly recorded audio evidence of alleged threats Diddy made against her and her family. When the tape played in court, Diddy lost it. He shot up from his chair and yelled directly at Cassie, "You know that's not what happened!" His legal team physically restrained him, pulling him back down as he struggled to shout over the recording. It reportedly took 3 lawyers to subdue him. The judge declared an emergency recess, but the scene had already sealed its place in courtroom history. The mogul who had built his career on being untouchable had just shown the world how vulnerable he truly was. As Diddy was escorted out, onlookers noted he looked nothing like the powerhouse who had entered earlier. His image had collapsed in front of the cameras and reporters, but the final blow was still to come. Cassie calmly revealed she had spent years quietly collecting proof of what she claimed occurred. Text messages, emails, photos, all secured, in multiple places where Diddy could never find or erase them. The courtroom held its breath as Cassie revealed messages from fellow celebrities who had allegedly witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. These weren't distant industry acquaintances. They were insiders, friends, longtime collaborators. One text from a famous rapper after an after-party read, "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can crash at my place if you need to." A major pop star had written, "I've known him for 15 years and I've never seen him act like that. This isn't normal. Call me, please." The most damning came from a veteran producer. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." Diddy's defense team immediately objected, arguing the messages were hearsay and should have been submitted earlier. The judge privately reviewed them and ruled, "They are highly relevant to this case." As the texts projected on the screens, Diddy reportedly buried his head in his hands. Then came the worst revelation. Diddy's own texts. Screenshots showed alleged apologies. "Sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." Another read. "Whatever you want to make this right. Car, apartment, anything." Even more damning, messages proposing hush money offers. "My lawyer can draw up papers tomorrow. $2 million clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." As the evidence mounted, something chilling happened. Members of Diddy's entourage, who had confidently entered with him that morning, quietly got up and slipped out one by one. By the end of the testimony, he sat alone at the table, just Diddy and his stunned legal team. The empire he had spent decades constructing now seemed to be collapsing in real time. Cassie Ventura hadn't just told her story, she may have rewritten Diddy's legacy. The question now wasn't whether Diddy could survive the trial. It was whether his public image could ever recover from the devastating truth laid bare in that courtroom.
The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
That Ventura had a choice and that she chose to participate in those sexual encounters.
Where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about freak-off.
And shut it all down. I mean it. Because what just exploded inside that courtroom wasn't just messy, it was pure chaos carved into legal history. Cameras didn't blink. Reporters froze. And Diddy? The same man who built an empire. Off swagger? He snapped. Hard. Right in front of a no-nonsense federal judge who wasn't playing games. Now get this. No suspense, no warning shots. Prosecutors just slid a folder onto the bench and said, "Your Honor, we've got more messages." Calm tone, deadly impact. In that moment, the entire case tilted. And those texts? Boss, they weren't just a little shady. They were lethal. They blew massive holes in Diddy's public defense. Lies got exposed like live wires. And right there, with Cassie watching from her seat, the jury leaned in, and Diddy crumbled. His fists were tight. His face? Ghost white. And for the first time ever, the man who micromanaged his public image like a machine completely lost control of his own story.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs's desires. "I'm always ready to freak off," one message said.
Cassie was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009, "I'm always ready to freak off." There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it going.
The courtroom didn't just freeze, it flatlined. You could hear a pin drop right before the gavel came down like thunder. The judge wasn't playing games. And baby, this was just the opening scene of day 4. Grab your screenshots, grab your popcorn, because what Diddy just walked into wasn't court, It was a public execution in slow motion. And boss, we're about to break down every gut-punching. Second, the day was supposed to be ordinary, just another round of suits slinging legal terms back and forth, playing chess with case law. But inside that ice-cold federal courtroom, something dangerous was already in the air. You could feel it. Diddy looked calm, at least on the surface. Pressed suit, locked jaw, hands folded on polished wood like he had this in the bag. But across the aisle, Cassie Ventura sat still, unreadable, but her eyes were a storm barely held back. The room didn't feel like court anymore. It felt like a battlefield. 3 days in, Cassie had already painted a chilling portrait of silence, control, and psychological warfare. But Diddy's legal squad tried flipping the script, showing old flirty texts, spinning it all as freaky love play. That story collapsed in one brutal second. Prosecutors stood. No theatrics. Just a folder, thick, ominous, full of receipts. Your Honor, we've recovered a series of text messages between Mr. Combs and Ms. Ventura. These were not previously disclosed. Boom. Earthquake. Every camera locked on Diddy. Reporters dropped, their pens mid-word. And Diddy? He blinked. Once. Twice. Then the panic leaked out of his eyes like ink. He knew what was in that folder. He knew. He gripped the table, knuckles white, chest rising fast. One attorney reached out. He jerked away. Then, out of nowhere, Diddy stood, shoved the chair back hard, took 2 steps toward the judge. Security flinched. The gallery held its breath. Mr. Combs, sit. Down. The judge's voice cracked like a whip, but it was too late. Diddy had already lost it. The calm, calculated mogul, gone. What stood there now was a man unraveling in real time. Face flushed, jaw clenched, mouthing words no one could hear. But everyone felt. And it wasn't anger, it was fear. Because the texts were pure dynamite, manipulation, threats, domination wrapped in slick language. A reporter later said, "It felt like watching a mask rip off in front of the whole world." Then came the bombshell messages. "Cassie, please stop threatening me. I'm scared of what you'll do." Diddy. "You should be." The gallery gasped, loud, real, raw. Careers didn't just end, they exploded. Another message. "Nobody walks away from me. I made you. I can break you just as fast." Another. "This only works because you do what I say. Don't forget that." Screens glowed with text after text, and every one of them peeled back the glossy image Diddy had carefully built. This wasn't a courtroom anymore. This was a reckoning. And the real kicker? All of this came just days after Diddy cried on live TV, calling his breakup with Cassie mutual, respectful, and loving. Respectful? You sure about that, Diddy?
Ventura's attorney is optimistic outside of court.
Doing great. I said she was ready, and I think she's demonstrating that. The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear as the case goes on and Cassie's testimony goes on, and we'll see what the jury does.
And finally, we'll talk about Justin Bieber because he is finally addressing the Diddy stuff. There's been long speculation that somehow he's involved.
Surprised it took so long to address.
Well, he's clearing that up now, and also we'll talk about how people are scared for Justin Bieber because they think he's in a cult. They have to have it.
By the end of today, Cassie will be done. So they have all day today to ask her whatever they want to ask her.
Because obviously, she's about to pop, and that's like...
Which is totally understandable.
So if she did pop, if she did give birth, let's say the technical term, over the weekend, you know what would happen then, Devin?
I don't.
mistrial, baby.
Why do you say that? What?
Because she's due back on the stand to give testimony. And if she can't give testimony...
No, she's giving testimony today.
I know. I was saying, what if...
Oh, like she gave birth and then...
That's why. That's the
delayed.
reason. If she wasn't pregnant, I don't think the judge would have said you have to finish by today.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. Obviously. That's the whole,
okay.
That's the whole crux of the argument.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You didn't explicitly, spell it out.
But Diddy's team is also pissed off because they're like, we want as much time as we can have.
Her voice is low at times. The defense did tell her if it's too much, I can read them, but there were many times early on this morning where she read some of those explicit details where she is clearly excited about a freak off and talks about entertaining other people in the bedroom.
And what has Diddy's demeanor been in this cross-examination as well?
There was a moment where Sean Combs was nodding in agreement when they brought up a message that he sent her where he said, one of my favorite times of the freak-offs is when we're able to make love after. And then she responds, that's the same for me. Now, what's interesting here is that does match what she told prosecutors or what she's been telling the jury all along, which is she did this and she said, but she really wanted to spend time with him after the fact. So he was shaking his head at this message where he's almost, I guess, agreeing that he did say, without him saying it, he enjoyed having the freak-offs and then having sex with her after the fact. And her saying, I agree with you, I love having sex with you after.
Respectful? Nah, try terrifying. Because nothing screams love and light like threatening a woman at midnight and reminding her the price tag on her silence. But boss, the prosecution wasn't done slicing through the illusion. They took those venom-laced texts and lined them up with Diddy's red carpet fairy tales, award nights, sweet interviews, Instagram posts dripping with fake vibes. 1 minute, he's telling the world, I'll always love her. The next, he's texting, break our deal and you'll regret it. Just like that, Diddy's polished PR mask crumbled into dust. But the biggest blow? Still coming. The prosecution wheeled out a 6-foot timeline board, plastered with side-by-side proof, Cassie dazzling on a red carpet. And on the same night, getting a message that read, don't smile at anyone. I saw you. I always see you. The courtroom didn't breathe. The jury looked stunned. This wasn't just messy. It was a psychological operation dressed as a relationship. The defense scrambled like cornered mice. The messages were misread. They were flirty. It was toxic but mutual. But Diddy's own words shredded that narrative. And Cassie? She never flinched, never looked at him. Not during the blow-up, not during the evidence drop. Not even when they tried painting her as the villain. She sat straight, cold, focused. And the jury? They felt that energy. In that moment, Diddy wasn't a mogul, wasn't the boss, wasn't even a man in control. He was just another powerful abuser finally exposed. And boss, that's where part 1 ends. Texts glowing on the screen. Diddy, unglued. The courtroom rattled. And his empire? Starting to collapse from the inside. 15 minutes after the judge called for recess, the courtroom reassembled. But something had shifted. Diddy didn't look powerful anymore. He looked hollow. Eyes straight, jaw tight, breathing steady, but you could tell. The man was shook. Then, boom. The prosecutor flipped to the next digital file. On the screen, you think you can walk away? Nobody walks away from me. I made you. I can break you. Gasps. A juror covered her mouth. Phones shook in reporters' hands. This wasn't the smooth-talking mogul from red carpets. This was dark. This was dangerous. And then came more. Time-stamped, brutal, threats at midnight, sweet talk by sunrise, a twisted loop of control. July 2018, just hours after a Glam Award show appearance, Diddy texted, "You should be scared. You forget who I am. Cassie, please stop. I don't feel safe." That combo hit the courtroom like a gut punch. The prosecutor zoomed in on the date. lined it up with viral couple photos from that same night. Perfect smiles outside. Private terror inside. The defense team panicked. Sidebar requests. Hushed arguments with the judge. Context, objections flying. But none of it hit. The jury? Not buying it. Cassie didn't move. When the screen lit up with the words, "Your silence has been paid for. Break it, and there will be consequences." She tensed, but didn't blink. A quiet hand from her lawyer on her arm. She nodded, unshaken. She came to fight. Outside, the internet exploded. Diddy unhinged. Cassie was right. Textgate TikToks, memes, YouTubers making breakdowns, people reenacting the courtroom like a Netflix series, and news sites. Headlines hit like meteor showers. Diddy's defense cracks open. Cassie's truth lights the courtroom on fire. Blogs, gossip sites, even fan pages went full FBI. Old interviews, old videos, all now layered with one. Diddy's own words just buried him. But inside that courtroom, the prosecution wasn't done. They built a case that cut through glamour and exposed horror. Photos, events, hotel bookings, everything aligned with messages. Then came March 2019. Cassie smiled at a man at an industry party. Diddy's message, "I saw you. You smiled. Don't lie to me." Cassie, "He's a photographer I've worked with for years." Diddy, "Don't play dumb. I've got eyes everywhere. You can't hide from me." Silence. Real, tense silence. Even the courtroom reporters stopped typing. Then, for the first time, Diddy whispered to his lawyer. His lawyer? Quick head shake. "Don't react again." Too late. Everyone saw it. He wasn't the man running the show anymore. He was the man being dragged off stage. And just when you thought it couldn't go deeper, it did. The prosecution closed the session with a final soul punch message, a text from 2018. After an alleged physical altercation, Diddy wrote, "I'm sorry about last night. I lost control. It won't happen again. No excuses, just quiet guilt." But for Cassie and the courtroom, it was all the confirmation they needed, because this trial just went from messy to monstrous.
The Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So
she is out of the freak-offs then. She is, when she's with Kid Cudi or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-off if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? I know it's kind of like a mental, she still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right, final story of the week. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? If no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why, all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off stuff.
For that was it. The courtroom visibly recoiled. Even the judge paused, then asked for a recess, acknowledging the emotional weight of the evidence. And in that moment, the narrative flipped. This wasn't just about celebrity drama. This was about power, about fear. About a man whose words finally spoke louder than his music ever did. As the court broke for the day, Diddy slumped in his chair, his face pale, his hands still trembling. Outside, Cassie walked out surrounded by her legal team. Head high, shoulders back, no tears, no words. But the silence said everything. As day 4 ended and day 5 approached, the media world didn't sleep. Every outlet, podcast, and gossip channel was spinning, clipping, posting. But no spin could outpace the truth now. Diddy's courtroom meltdown wasn't just a trending topic, it was a moment of reckoning, and the ripple effects were about to hit harder than anyone expected. The prosecution had played their cards perfectly by revealing the texts after. Establishing a timeline of abuse, control, and manipulation, they delivered a masterclass in public takedown strategy. And as court resumed the next morning, the judge's attitude had visibly shifted. Where Judge Richter had been balanced before, occasionally siding with Diddy's team on procedural objections, now he was clearly done with the nonsense. His demeanor was sharper, colder, less tolerance, more order. Diddy, once untouchable, now sat hunched at the defense table, his lawyers frantically whispering strategy. You could practically see the panic simmering under his tailored suit. He wasn't preparing for defense. He was preparing for survival. And then came the next bombshell. Courtroom surveillance footage. The prosecution submitted newly obtained. Video, low-res but clear, allegedly showing Diddy pacing outside Cassie's hotel room on the night referenced in the "I lost control" text. The clip was time-stamped, and Cassie had already testified about that night, a violent outburst, followed by threats and a coerced apology. The defense, they tried to object, called it inflammatory. The judge overruled. The clip was played for the jury. There was no sound, but the visuals were enough. Diddy pacing, checking his phone, knocking, then pushing the door, disappearing inside. The clip cut off there, but the message landed. That wasn't just a timeline. That was a trap closing. The prosecutor calmly turned back to the jury and read the follow-up message. Next time you disobey, I won't be so nice. Diddy's face went blank. The courtroom? Shaken? And Cassie? She stayed composed, lips tight, eyes forward. Her presence was ice cold, steel in the center of chaos. Outside the courtroom, public opinion was spiraling. Influencers who once partied with Diddy were deleting posts. Former collaborators were suddenly unavailable for comment. One prominent R&B star even canceled a planned feature on Diddy's next album, citing moral concerns. But the most unexpected reaction? Justin Bieber. After days of rumors linking him to Diddy's inner circle during the so-called freak-off years, Bieber broke his silence in an Instagram story. I stand with survivors. Period. 3 words, but the internet caught fire. Did Bieber just turn on Diddy? He knows something. Surviving, Diddy incoming. And with that, the narrative widened. It wasn't just Diddy versus Cassie anymore. It was the industry versus Diddy. The brands, the networks, the silence from his celebrity friends. Deafening. But back in court, it got even worse. The prosecution revealed that they'd subpoenaed more text data, this time from a burner phone believed to be used by one of Diddy's assistants. The messages allegedly showed coordination to manage Cassie's public image, to keep her soft-spoken, on script, and distracted with gifts. One message read, "Tell her we'll pay for the apartment. Just make sure she shuts up. I don't need another leak." Diddy's lawyers claimed these were taken out of context, but the prosecution had receipts, and then came the email, leaked via anonymous whistleblower, submitted under seal. But when unsealed that afternoon, it stopped everything. Subject line, "We have a problem." From Diddy's PR team to multiple execs, including a VH1 network liaison. The body of the email referenced Cassie's growing instability, narrative control, and damage containment.
This violence captured on cameras at a Los Angeles hotel ensued. You can see Combs kicking and dragging her.
But the defense said Ventura's participation in the freak-offs was at times her idea, showing a text message from days earlier that said, "Baby, I want to FO so bad."
You proposed a freak-off, a defense attorney said. You kept asking him.
Combs' lawyers revealed he overdosed on painkillers in 2012, asking Ventura, were the worst years associated in any way with his drug use? Yeah, I would say. The defense hoping to convince the jury Combs became violent not to coerce Ventura into sex, but because he was an addict. They argue he may have been abusive, but that he's not guilty of sex trafficking.
Yeah. And then I think things might have just spiraled out of control. And at the end, do I think that she wanted to do those things? No.
No, I don't think she wanted to do it at the end.
But it
could
does
be more explicit about it.
True.
I wish there was a paper trail of her like being more, because then he'd be cooked.
Yes, I agree with that. And yeah, so yeah, these texts don't look good because it does make it look like she was into the freak-offs and all the freaky stuff.
The court wasn't just looking at Diddy the man, it was looking at Diddy the machine, the whole operation, the infrastructure of silence, the well-oiled system built not just to silence Cassie, but to protect the empire. The high judge's face tightened. The jury looked stunned. The question on everyone's mind wasn't, did Diddy send threatening texts? It was now. How far did the cover-up go? Because if his team coordinated suppression, that's not just abuse. That's obstruction. And baby, in federal court, that's a whole new storm. By mid-afternoon, Diddy's legal team requested a recess, citing emotional fatigue. The judge granted 30 minutes. During that break, Cassie's attorney gave a brief hallway statement. The truth isn't just coming out, it's pouring out. And we're just getting started. Boom. Internet. Explodes again. TikTok. Diddy covered it up. VH1 involved? Hollywood's silence is violence. Meanwhile, back inside the courthouse, the final dagger of the day was driven in clean. A text from Diddy to Cassie, dated late 2019, just after she signed with a new management agency. If you think you can outgrow me, think again. I gave you everything. I can take it all back. That line? That wasn't about love. That was about ownership. That was about power. And in front of a courtroom filled with legal analysts, media sharks, and an emotionally exhausted jury, it rang louder than any hit Diddy's ever produced. As court adjourned for the day, the judge gave one final reminder. We reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp, and we will begin the next phase, including witness cross-examinations. Prepare accordingly. Translation: it's about to get messier. Outside, Diddy was ushered through the back exit under tight security. He didn't speak. He didn't wave. His eyes stayed locked on the ground.
You know, they have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, two of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother, and her husband, Alice Fine. I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages, so he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we are.
Inside the courthouse, Cassie gathered her things, straightened her blazer, walked out the front door. The crowd applauded. Reporters shouted her name. She didn't stop, didn't smile, didn't blink. She walked like a woman who knew. The hardest part was finally behind her. And the truth was catching up fast. And just like that, the courtroom lights may have dimmed for the day, but this story? Oh no, boss. It's only getting hotter. You've just witnessed the unraveling of a legacy. Not from gossip blogs or shady sources, but straight from courtroom screens and Diddy's own damn text messages. What started as a defamation case has now turned into a full-blown demolition of an empire. The facade is cracking, the whispers are turning into headlines, and the mask? It's gone. But here's the part that should really shake you. If this is what's been exposed in just 4 days, what the hell is still hidden? What other secrets are buried in those vaults? How deep does the manipulation go? And most chilling of all, who else helped cover it all up? The industry is silent. Celebrities are ducking. And VH1? They're sweating in their corner offices, praying this storm doesn't reach the foundation. But let's be clear. The streets aren't staying silent. Neither are we. So now, it's your move. Was Diddy just exposed as the master manipulator he's always denied being? Was Cassie forced into silence for years, only to rise now and rip the lid off it all? Or is this just the beginning of a chain reaction that could take down more than just one man? Sound off in the comments. Drop your wildest theories. Defend your favorite, drag the rest. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that bell. Because in this courtroom circus, the next act might just be the one that ends Diddy's entire dynasty. We're not done here. The streets are still watching.
That I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being and is going to pay.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
The courtroom froze. Diddy's calm mask shattered in an instant. His hands balled into fists, his jaw locked tight, and the air grew thick with unease. Then came the name that pushed it all over the edge. Justin Bieber. That was the trigger. The exact second Diddy unraveled, day 2 of the trial, and the news had just broken that Bieber had gone public, standing with Cassie. The room didn't stay quiet for long. Just security rushed in. Chaos followed, and what happened in the next few moments left even the judge visibly shaken.
I think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully. But yeah, just protecting those moments, because people take for granted encounters and
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful.
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives? Like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
Signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very.
Two opened with this strange, eerie calm. Diddy entered the courtroom flanked by his top-tier legal squad, exuding fake confidence. But if you looked at his eyes, really looked, something was off. He kept glancing around, like he expected someone to jump out from the shadows. Security wasn't routine that morning either. It was beefed up around Diddy's table, noticeably. One guard stood directly behind his chair. Another planted himself in the aisle. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like prevention, like somebody tipped them off that trouble was coming. Then Cassie arrived, and everything shifted. She wasn't dressed to impress, but she made an impact. A black dress, white collar, minimal, but it spoke volumes. Her friends closed in around her like a human shield, guiding her to her seat like they were protecting royalty. It was the ultimate contrast. Diddy, wrapped in hired muscle. Cassie, surrounded by people who actually cared. But here's where things got even more off. Diddy wouldn't stop checking his phone. He kept pulling it out, scrolling fast, eyes narrowing. With every swipe, his face darkened. Finally, his lead attorney reached over and physically took the phone away. That's when I noticed it. Diddy's hand was shaking. Meanwhile, the prosecution was acting real strange too. They weren't calm, they were charged. Whispering behind binders, passing digital tablets back and forth. One prosecutor showed something to another and they both nodded, like the final piece of a puzzle just clicked into place. They knew something. Diddy's lawyer tried talking him down 3 separate times before the judge even showed up. He leaned over, whispered in his ear, even placed a hand on his back. But Diddy kept shrugging him off, hard. At one point, he shoved the guy so suddenly the lawyer had to grab the table to stay upright. When the judge finally entered, her expression said everything. Yesterday, she looked composed, almost casual. Today, she looked like a school principal who'd just caught wind of a major prank about to blow. Her eyes went straight to Diddy. Then she leaned to her clerk and whispered something. The clerk nodded and immediately picked up the phone. No one in the courtroom knew it yet, but Diddy had just seen something on social media minutes earlier. Something that would push him over the edge. His team had tried to snatch the phone in time, but it was too late. He saw it. The Justin Bieber post. And that was all it took. The bailiff called the room to order, but the air was thick with unease. You could feel it building. Even the jury felt it. One juror started shaking as she reached for a water cup, her hand barely steady. Diddy sat at his table, his leg bouncing, a vein pulsing across his forehead. His lawyer kept sliding legal documents in front of him like a distraction. But Diddy wasn't reading. He was staring into space, breathing hard, like a volcano ready to blow. Everyone could feel it coming. Nobody knew what would spark it, or how ugly it might get. The ticking of the courtroom clock grew louder with each second, and just like that, Diddy's polished image was about to explode, right there, in front of everyone.
Yeah, so, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, I mean, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know? And like,
it's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life.
Let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
While the courtroom chaos had everyone's attention, something seismic was happening outside those walls. Out of nowhere, Justin Bieber detonated a social media bomb that no one saw coming. Right in the middle of the trial proceedings, Bieber posted a public statement in full support of Cassie, and the ripple effect hit like a tsunami across the music industry. And straight into that courtroom. This wasn't just headline fodder, it was personal. Why? Because Bieber and Diddy weren't just industry colleagues. They had history. Everyone remembers those old clips. Teenage Bieber, wide-eyed, hanging, around Diddy at parties. Diddy used to proudly call himself Bieber's big bro, claiming he helped mold Justin's career. So when this message dropped, bold, specific, and brutally honest, it landed like the ultimate betrayal. And no, this wasn't your typical sending thoughts and prayers celebrity PR fluff. Bieber got raw. He talked about his own experience firsthand. He recalled moments where Diddy allegedly grabbed Cassie's arm too forcefully at a 2015 after-party. He described watching Diddy silence Cassie during interviews, interrupting her, speaking over her. These weren't second-hand whispers. These were his own eyes, his own regret. As soon as court broke for recess, Bieber's post spread like wildfire. In the hallway, clusters formed instantly. People huddled around phones. A court officer had to issue a reminder to shut off devices before returning. Paralegals printed out screenshots and rushed them to their teams. Even jurors looked puzzled, clearly picking up on the wave of hushed chatter. The post wasn't just text either. It included a striking throwback photo. Bieber and Cassie at a music event, both smiling. But if you zoomed in on Cassie's eyes, there was a sadness people hadn't noticed back then. Bieber's caption hit hard. "I've always admired Cassie's strength. I should have spoken up sooner." And for Diddy? The timing was catastrophic. Within minutes, over 270 million people had seen that post. News outlets pounced. Live updates, push alerts. What was once just courtroom drama suddenly became a global spectacle. This wasn't just one pop star chiming in. This was a major figure throwing weight behind a victim in an active trial. Reporters lost it. One literally bolted out of the courtroom to phone her editor. Another typed like her fingers were on fire. A network anchor mouthed across the gallery, "Did you see it?" They all knew. This flipped the entire public perception of the case. The whispers got deafening. A bailiff had to scold people just to quiet down. Phones kept flashing. Faces were stunned. Some eyes locked on Diddy, waiting to see his reaction. Others turned to Cassie, who sat still, unmoved, composed as ever, even though she had to know what was happening. What made Bieber's post so powerful was his wording. He didn't just throw support, he confessed. He called Cassie brave, said the things he saw years ago made him deeply uncomfortable, but he hadn't recognized the pattern back then. He even admitted being disappointed in himself for not speaking out sooner. Diddy's defense team saw the storm coming. One lawyer jumped up first, trying to block Diddy's view of another phone. He whispered fast, ordering all devices off the table. But it was too late. Someone had already shown Diddy the post. His eyes locked on the screen. He read it. They widened, and right then, the change in his face was undeniable. Everyone near him saw it happen in real time. There was no coming back from this.
16 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to his original mentor. So this is a very big story, and the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music, and he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish, and he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry, and sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I don't want to, never going to force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
When Diddy laid eyes on Bieber's post, it was like watching a man short circuit. His face shifted instantly. Total shock washed over him, mouth slightly open, eyes wide like headlights. Then came the realization. His brows furrowed as the betrayal sank in. But the most chilling moment? When that disbelief turned into pure fury. His nostrils flared. His jaw locked so hard it looked painful. One woman, seated 3 rows back, later told reporters his hands began to tremble violently. He tried to grab some documents from his attorney, but his grip failed. The papers slipped right through his fingers and scattered all over the floor. That's when people started watching. Not glancing. Watching. The real warning came next. Diddy suddenly stood. Not a calm stretch-your-legs kind of stand. This was sharp, sudden, and tense. A nearby bailiff, who had clearly been keeping a close eye on him, immediately stepped forward. This wasn't their first time dealing with someone about to snap. Then Diddy spoke, loud enough for those in front rows to hear him. After everything I did for that kid, so much for loyalty. And something else. Something darker. About consequences. His lawyer reacted fast, grabbing Diddy by the arm and yanking him back into his seat. He whispered urgently, trying to calm him down. But Diddy wasn't listening. His breathing was heavy, erratic, like he'd sprinted up 10 flights of stairs. The court sketch artist captured it all, and the drawings were disturbing. The wild eyes, the tight jaw, the thick veins crawling up his neck. One artist even told reporters it was the most intense face she'd drawn in over a decade of covering trials. Across the aisle, prosecutors weren't missing a beat. The lead prosecutor gave a discreet hand signal to her assistant, who quietly slipped out the side door. We'd later learn she was rushing to bring in a surprise witness, someone directly connected to the claims in Bieber's post. Security wasn't sleeping either. Two guards exchanged glances, no words, just eyes, and subtly moved closer to Diddy's table. One of them even unclipped something from his belt, not drawing it, but ready, just in case. Everything about Diddy had changed. On day one, and even earlier that morning, he'd been calm, poised, even smug. Now he couldn't sit still. He ran a hand over his face. He loosened his tie like it was choking him. And then, bam. He slammed his palm down on the table. A glass of water toppled and shattered across the floor. People jumped in their seats. Diddy leaned forward and muttered, loud enough for court reporters to catch, "He'll never work in this industry again. Neither of them will." His lawyer immediately wrapped an arm around Diddy's shoulders, trying to keep him grounded. The judge had seen enough. She slammed the gavel and called for a 15-minute recess. But that break? It didn't help. It gave Diddy time to spiral further, while his legal team huddled in panic. And when the session resumed, it was Cassie's moment. Only now, she wasn't the same woman from day one. She walked to the witness stand with her shoulders squared, chin raised, no more downward glances. She looked directly at the jury, and she didn't flinch at Diddy. Then came the evidence. Never before seen text messages between her and Diddy. In one 2016 exchange, he sent 17 messages in a row, demanding to know why she hadn't answered. Another message asked her for the exact room number she was staying in. "I need to know where you are every minute. That's the deal if you want to keep your career." The courtroom went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the ceiling fans. Then Cassie described how he kept tabs on her, restricted who she could even talk to. "There were male artists I wasn't allowed to speak to unless he was standing right there," she testified. When Ibar asked for an example, she said, "Justin Bieber was one of them." And when she dared question the rule, "He grabbed my arm at an after party, in front of everyone. He whispered that I'd regret it." Cassie's voice didn't crack, not once. She was steady, clear, determined. Her story echoed everything Bieber had just shared. The surveillance, the control, the veiled threats. Even though Cassie stated they hadn't spoken in years, her details aligned almost perfectly with Bieber's. When asked why she'd stayed silent for so long, her answer was brutal. "He told me no one would believe me. He said he decides who wins in this business and who disappears, and I watched him end careers over a phone call." Two jurors physically reacted. A woman wiped her eyes. An older man wrote a note and underlined it 3 times. Then came the knockout moment. Prosecutors played hotel surveillance footage from 2018. Cassie was seen trying to chat with a male artist in a hotel lobby. Diddy appeared, wrapped an arm around her, and escorted her away. The body language was chilling. It matched her testimony exactly. Diddy leaned into his lawyer, visibly panicked, whispering and pointing at the screen. Cassie kept going, listing specific moments with precise dates and locations. March 8, 2017, Standard Hotel, NYC. June 22, 2017, his mansion in Miami. September 12, 2018, backstage at the VMAs. Each mention sent